right now. So I'll first share my slides on the KUVATA. So welcome everyone to our today's webinar on the KUVATA series. And I'm the managing director of Globe Art Point. Globe Art Point is one of the 3 partners in this KUVATA project. And the other ones are the Tampere University of Applied Sciences and the University of Lapland. And the project lasts for 2 years, and it was founded to make better the earning opportunities for visual artists, and also to look for innovations and new venues where to implement visual arts. And we have already had a series of webinars during the fall, and now we're continuing today with the title that Art for the Sake of Good. And just before entering to the program, I will tell that Globe Art Point is an association founded in 2017, founded by international artists and Finnish artists to advocate and promote international artists in Finland, in the whole Finland. So we have a national region where we operate, and we have 21 associate members and 37 supporting members. And the most important thing that we have and promote on our newly reformed website is a database of artists of our community. So there you can search for different expertise and special and different art fields, and according to the region and language where our artists work. And on the KUVATA project has its own webpage also. You can see it here. And we also are active on social media. So there is a LinkedIn group, and then also on Instagram, the University of Lapland, the Faculty of Arts and Design is present on Instagram, and so are we from the GAP. And to today's topic. So the title is Art for the Sake of Good. And we're changing a little bit the order. So we're starting with Olli Ruokolainen, who is a KUVATA researcher. And we will hear about cultural well-being for the elderly and the operating conditions of artists. That's a project by KUVATA, and we will hear more in the presentation. Then we have Katja Arapova, who is a psychologist and an art therapist, talking about the transformative power of art therapy in fostering emotional balance, self-expression, and personal growth. And last but not least, we will have Timo Jokela, who is a professor emeritus of University of Lapland, and he will be talking about the Sustainable Portrait project in the presentation. And why don't we just kick off? For the practical side, there is always a 20-minute presentation, and there is space for Q&A after the presentation. You can always submit the questions or comments to this Teams chat, or you can raise your hand, and then I'll moderate the questions and comments after each presentation. Also, after all presentations, we have time to discuss maybe what is the red thread that transfers all these presentations, or any ideas that these presentations bring to your mind. So it's supposed to be interactive, but first we give the word for the speakers. So I will stop sharing my presentation, and please, Olli, go ahead. Let's see.
Thank you.
I stopped sharing, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll try to share my presentation, just a moment. Okay, it should be in the presentation mode at the moment, or in a while. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Olli Ruokolainen. I work as a senior researcher at the Center for Cultural Policy Research, KUPORE. In recent years, we have been working in several research projects with the subject of cultural well-being or arts, health and well-being. In this presentation, I'm trying to sum up some of the findings and recommendations based on our research or from our research. I have a slightly wider topic than the actual topic in the program, but anyway, let's begin. So. Let's see if I can change my actually I accidentally turned off the microphone, but I hope you hear me now. So the aim of this presentation is to shed light on the health and social services administration as a context to cultural well-being and to examine its prospects for artists working in the field. Now, we've found out that when we try to focus on the working and operating conditions of artists, we often and almost always end up talking about larger institutional questions and preconditions of working as an artist with cultural well-being. And because of that, I'm going to focus on kind of the administrative context of cultural well-being. So I'm going to talk about what does the cultural well-being actually look like in an administrative context, who does what, where, and so on. I'm going to present 4 persistent challenges of cultural well-being activity in Finland based on our research. Then I'm going to talk about this, should we say, game-changing change in the administrative context, the well-being services counties reform in 2023 and its effects on cultural well-being activity. And then I'll make some recommendations and conclusions based on research. Well, as I said, we can think of cultural well-being activities very widely as a kind of thing or phenomenon that is present in almost any kind of cultural activity. Any kind of cultural activity can produce cultural well-being or well-being, but we have focused especially on the cultural well-being that takes place or connects somehow to the health and social care services structures and administrative structures and the functioning of health and social care services staff and their activities. So I have a so-called SOTE context is very much present in my presentation, and if we think about artists and audience, the audience is more or less patients in this presentation. But this is what it kind of looks like. This is this figure presents the problem that we're trying to focus on solving with our research in KUPORE. If we think about the context, there are actors who are producing the content, making the art. There are the artists, and then there is this kind of should we say mediating or developing or actors who are mediating and developing cultural well-being activities, and then there are the actors or organizations or people, the patients and potential audience who are enjoying health benefits, or as I said, the organizations and institutions that are utilizing the cultural well-being that is produced by artists. But the problem is that in order to connect to the potential audience, artists have to kind of get through this administrative jungle of well-being services, counties, and health and well-being coordinators, development projects, care units, and staff, and this kind of there's this, should I say, boundary which the artists have to go over or through to reach the audience, the patients, with their content and art, and we're trying to figure out that how for example different I would say that we're focusing on the mediating and developing of this whole setup here, but and most of our findings is about the mediating and developing or the utilizing kind of part of this setup. But yeah, and well, just to say something about where our findings come from, we have tried to make sense of all this administrative context, the SOTE context, and in its effects in 4 different research projects in KUPORE since 2016, and currently we are studying or researching the cultural well-being activities in the well-being services counties. We're focusing on goals, operating models, and funding, but I think it was the cultural well-being for the elderly and the operating conditions of artists research project that we found 4 persistent challenges of cultural well-being activity in Finland. There is the lack of basic funding, which is of course kind of it is present in many fields and many cultural activities, but it is very pronounced in cultural well-being activities. It is not only about the lack of basic funding, but it's about who funds and what. The funding is heavily reliant on cultural funding. It's more about cultural policy. It's about grants and from foundations and so on. Then it is about actually funding from health and social sector as such. although we are the artists are working basically in the health and social sector, but their funding comes from cultural policy to kind of simplify this setting. There is emphasis on projects and short-term funding, which kind of stems from the lack of basic funding, of course. But this emphasis on short-term funding means that long-term activities cannot actually be planned, or there's a lack of long-term cultural well-being activity. It is kind of difficult to see very far and kind of sustain the activities that have already started. And then there's the insufficient coordination on regional and national level, especially on regional level now that we have moved to the cultural, to the well-being services counties. This means that the well-being services counties do not follow how much they allocate resources to cultural well-being, and it seems that no one actually has kind of the whole picture of cultural well-being on the regional level. There are various actors, various organizations and institutions doing good things, but it lacks this coordination and seeing the phenomenon as a whole. Then there is a lack of competence in the procurement of cultural services in the health and social care sector. The SOTE or health and social sector staff is not always aware of the potential of cultural well-being activity. And there are not enough clear or uniform operating models on how to incorporate cultural well-being activity into the other health and social services activities and services. But well, on top of all these problems, the well-being services counties reform changed a lot of things. It was a major change in the organization of health and social services. The responsibility for organizing these services has been transferred from municipalities to these self-governing well-being services counties since the beginning of year 2023. And the essential thing about this is that there was a move from kind of intra-organizational interfaces or within the municipalities to boundaries between local and regional level organizations. The previous situation was that within a single municipal organization, cultural policy actors and health and social services actors could kind of align their activities and plans more precisely, and kind of they had a connection within the same organization. But now the situation is kind of different. We have municipalities have to connect to the well-being services counties, and there's this kind of local and regional boundary and organizational boundaries between municipalities and well-being services counties. There are many specific challenges connected or stemming from this reform. The informal kind of interfaces and networks between actors working with cultural well-being have in some cases been almost totally lost in this administrative reform, and these networks have to be rebuilt in many cases, in many regions, and the importance of cultural well-being has to be articulated to new decision makers, new political decision makers in the well-being services counties, councils, as well as in some cases to the actual staff of well-being services counties. And of course, there seems to be this, should I say, austerity mentality. The major budget cuts of well-being services counties have hindered also the cultural well-being activities, and they do not seem to be a priority of the well-being services counties at this moment, unfortunately. We have made some recommendations based on our research about decision-making, funding, coordination, commissioning the cultural well-being services, and the operating models related to them. So cultural well-being needs to become a fixed element in decision-making and steering systems, and this basically means words and numbers. There has to be strategic aims related to cultural well-being in the health and social sector, in the well-being services counties, and there has to be some kind of numbers, meaning that cultural well-being has to be incorporated to the mechanisms that measure the effects of well-being services counties, for example. Because if there are no numbers, it kind of the cultural well-being is not present as a phenomenon or development subject or object in the functioning of these well-being services counties. Well, there has to be a better permanent funding solutions where the social and the health and social sector has a more prominent role. We need better coordination, especially on the regional level, as there are this municipal and regional level activity at the moment, which is kind of fuzzy at the moment. We need better commissioning competencies and better understanding of the impacts and significance of cultural well-being activities. And also we need more consistent and scalable, but at the same time flexible enough operating models for for example, how patients are guided to the cultural well-being services and so on. But I think it's time to conclude. The four persistent basic problems have no easy solutions. There is still a lack of funding. There's a emphasis on short-term activity and project funding. There's this lack of coordination. There's lack of competence in procuring or kind of ordering the cultural well-being services from artists. And the operating conditions of artists in this field and in the context of well-being services counties are still quite random. There are regional variations in funding and strategic awareness of this health and social sector actors, and also the operating models vary quite much. The SOTE or the well-being services counties reform is somehow a turning point. It could be seen as a positive as a positive thing, it offers an opportunity to develop this cultural well-being activity. But at the same time, as I said, there's this austerity mentality which could endanger some of the things already achieved. But I've talked a lot about administration and structures, but I think it has to be remembered that there are behind all this, or within in this context, administrative context, there are still people doing things. There are active individuals. There are networks of cultural well-being that still persist and continue to develop the cultural well-being field ahead. And I think I'll end my presentation with this positive note that although the structural and administrative context is to some extent quite grim, we still have this activity that persists and goes on. But at this point, I think I'll thank you for listening and watching, and look forward to hearing your questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Olli. That was very interesting. And what seems the most concerning thing, or the issue that really needs to be taken care of, is not losing all these existing networks. That was really alarming, what you mentioned about the informal networks getting lost. And then also how to lower this threshold for between the social and health services and the cultural workers, and especially the funding issue, that even if the activities are implemented in the social and health services, but the funding comes from the cultural sector and now is endangered by the cuts. So what is the impact? Like you mentioned in the end, that how to measure to be able to influence the decision makers, you should be able to show the impact, to have some numbers, and then what are the connections between cuts somewhere else? How does it influence the other sector? But now, please, any comment or question to Olli? We have some minutes for that before proceeding. So if there's anything that you if you wanna speak up, raise your hand and I'll give you the word, or submit your questions to the chat. Or do you want to comment directly on these? If there's anything else you want to add, Olli. But this is very, very interesting, and to have a coherent picture of the whole field, it is complex, like you said.
Yes, it's quite complex, and as I said in the presentation, the administrative, the SOTE reform has changed a lot of things, and we'll have reports in I think in May coming out as a KUPORE research report. We'll try to sum up some of the. Well, we kind of draw a situational picture of what is going on in the various welfare services counties with this cultural well-being, and but this is there's kind of this turbulence at the moment with this whole phenomenon in administrative context. So I don't know. Things are on the move at the moment. It's an interesting time to study this and research this subject, but also it can be quite challenging to the actors who actually doing the work in the well-being services counties.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, we're in the end, we're talking about individuals at both ends of the, what you said, or called the so-called audience, meaning the individual receiving these cultural well-being services, and then the actors in this process. So it's challenging, but every time when it's challenging, something new may come up. So thank you very much. And you can still submit the questions to the chat, and then we can get back to them in the end of this webinar, where we have some time, 10 minutes for questions and comments. But now I would ask us to move to Katja Arapova's presentation. Katja is an art therapist, and she will be talking about the different ways of applying art therapy to the cultural well-being. So please, Katja, it's your turn.
Yes, just a minute. Can you see me and my slide?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, I lost my name on the first slide, but anyway. Hi, everybody. My name is Katja Arapova. And at first I want to tell about my background, because it's a big part of my life story. And my overview of background in art therapy in my Russian story life, and my part in Finland. So I have an experience of using creativity for well-being and self-development. I'm absolutely sure that art therapy and creative practices truly help people to adapt to life changes, to cope with difficulties, and to build resilience. And I have a lot of chances to observe this for many years, just because I'm a member and a mentor of the Women's League of Development Practitioners since 2018, where those women from not only Russia, but from Lithuania, Ukraine, Kipre, Switzerland, Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, USA, Canada, Mexico, Sweden, and Finland in my face. We are unit to learn self-help techniques, promote and facilitate art and other practices. And we help not only for ourselves, but also other women. And most of all, I am the member of the International Art Therapy Association, which is based in St. Petersburg. So, and in Finland, glad to be a part of Globe Art Point. And I want to say you are doing a good job, showing the world creative people, organize interesting events, and give a chance who do not live in a capital region by online activities. In Finland, I am the museum volunteer, and I am the part of Painting Women Society, which name is Atelier. And more than 2 years I live in Ostrobotnia region. And also I am a Finnish Red Cross volunteer. And from 2024 I became a first psychosocial first aid course trainer. And I'm a member of European Union for Health Turvallinen Mieli project in the frame of it, and with the support of city administration, I created and do volunteering program of a women's club which I named the Warm Place. This club is for Russian language-speaking women in a difficult life situation. For those women who have fled the armed conflict, you know, from Ukraine. And this project is especially important for women as one of the most active, but at the same time vulnerable groups of society. For those who, despite any cataclysms and changes in life, need to cope with difficulties, continuing to take care not only of themselves, but also of their loved ones, of children. And this means that they usually have no time for themselves. Women have to control a lot, which sometimes increases physical tensions and increases stress. That's the reason why I focus on creating a women's club. And we create the good time for ourselves together. So now I would like to tell you about my 3 apple club concept. Imagine that there are 3 apples, each of them containing the women's well-being in their seeds. Who could grow? Social well-being. It's about women's awareness and acceptance of oneself, one's significance in society, about warm relationship and communications with others. And in this part of concept, I would like it's really like that, like I think about it. We meet every week, every Friday, over a cup of coffee or tea at the big table in a beautiful historical warm place. And the space is very important to our meetings. The second apple, physical well-being. This is about activity and general well-being. It's about life energy as an important component of the happiness. And I promote the idea of physical activity, including through, for example, joint works. And by the way, through Pilates activities for us. According to the women themselves, the club is a good reason to leave the house and switch from caring for others to themselves. And I think this is my success. Like I'm an organizer. And the third part is the mental well-being. It's about inner harmony and balance, discovering one's potential, about expressing feelings, and about adapting coping. And we breathe and talk about ourselves in our meeting in club. Our women's club is conceived as a space that unites all 3 components of well-being. The holistic approach aims to create a supportive environment where every aspect of well-being is important. Support for women's well-being is provided through movement and connection, creating a safe, relaxing space which we make for ourselves, art therapeutic practices that become a material embodiment of what is happening to a woman at the moment. Just one sheet of paper could be a container in which women can creatively park her conclusions and feelings during club meetings, during tea and coffee ceremonies, and during the working together. But not only paper, of course. I use a multimodal approach in art therapy. So Art is not just something we create or admire. It's a language and a tool. Sometimes even a lifeline. And what kind of art practices do women already have in their own place if we began just in October of last year? Our club is rather young. I would like to describe some art therapeutic moments. My favorite, the secret scene of Belben. Just try from one sheet of paper to create a mini journal colored with symbolic images about our well-being and about that moments what are most important for every woman individually. So we have a special memory place for our own well-being, and we can look this book and remind to ourselves what is important for me, and we can add something to the book. The other art practice is the dance movement practice, and its name is Seeds of My Beauty. After all, art therapy has broad horizons and does not end with drawing. So we have our own secret dance of beauty, and when we dance, we try to be happier. And by the way, we have a jar of beauty. The other kind of art practice is named My Good New Year. It was in the end of December, and it's the collage art practice. Collage art practices allow to reassemble themselves from 1,000 pieces. And we gave ourselves a little more integrality and expanded planning horizons. The movement of tearing or cutting, then gluing and getting a complete image is very therapeutic, I'm sure of that. Especially for those who are broken, ruined, and trying to rebuild their lives. The other art therapeutic practice is warm theme. It's about dry felting practice. And as I imagine, this is a sacred work with wool and needle, using the dry felting method. It seems to take us back to ancient times, when women of the clan took care of the worms of their loved ones. And the power of the clan reminds of itself and gives the opportunity to rely on the entire female experience of the whole world. And all women experience can help us to feel better at the moment. The other art practice name is the Field of My Mood, and it is the watercolor experimental practice. Watercolor is an essential transparent tool that focuses on the process, feelings, and help to see uniqueness in random mistakes. And in the one part, watercolor is in my mind, the most difficult tool. But if we have the experiment, if we allow to make mistakes, it could be make the therapeutic effect. And the one of the 6 art practice is the emotional works together, or metaphorical works together, different ways. But we also practice sometimes walking together with observation of the sky, the sun, the wind, the water, the houses, the streets, and our feelings about the safe place where women are right now. And this is this helped to focus on the beauty of the world, and I believe in it that it helps to feel better also. So in conclusion, I want to say the following. Some art practices need a special place, time, materials, and vision to create, but not demanding of the special professional creative skills. Everybody can draw or work in or making something, what he or she wants. Each time I'm really surprised how different but always beautiful the result is. Also, the theme is common. And I believe and happy to see how creative activities and art therapy helps us to adapt to changes, to cope with difficulties, to expand the range of ways to solve problems, to expand, to build a life strategy, dream, and age goals, to engage in self-knowledge and reflection, develop as a person. It helps to learn to express emotions and feelings, to get psychological relief in environmentally friendly ways, to improve the mental and physical condition, and to restore what is destroyed and create something new. Yay. And the art therapy practices and our meetings in the club help to expand horizons of worldview and to find our own people and feel together. Art therapy is creating our new realities, and we don't have to be the artists. We just need to want to create and to be together and to be with ourselves. And we can find more coping strategies to help ourselves to rise from the ruins, or to give our pain to paper and color, or to start exploring our feelings and emotions. So that's all what I prepared. And if you want to ask something, please ask in simple English.
Thank you so much, Katja. That was, again, very interesting. And I think this kind of warm place would serve all of us, not just people with some complex or conflict backgrounds. So beautifully brought to the practice what these 6 elements of this method were. It was really good to hear. And also you emphasizing that there's creativity in all of us, saying this as not an artist myself, but then I strongly believe in that. And also that the creativity can give us channels to express different characteristics of ourselves. But is there any question in the chat? Or from Alex, how do you fund the activities you mentioned? Your mic is not on. We don't hear you.
Sorry. Thank you for the question. Really good question. First of all trainers of European Union for health, for mental health, we have the special training guide with a lot of exercises, but they are training exercises. And it was my decision to add art therapy and to change some training exercises to art therapeutic kind. So, and as I told, I have a really big experience in self-development practices and in art therapy, and have a lot of in my mind. I can create it by myself, and all my societies, which I'm a part of those societies, they help also. I feel that I have a really great background, the power of women, the power of practitioners, and the power of my colleagues. So this is the big space, and I can take a lot of ideas from this space.
But how do you find the money to do it? How do you get the funding? Do you get a salary for these practices, or do you sell your cultural well-being services through some medium, or?
Money for the women's club, they are from the project Europa Union for Health and through the Finnish Red Cross.
Okay, good. Any other comments or questions that come to mind? We can also digest these ideas for a while and then come back to the discussion towards the end. Is there anything I maybe missed it in the beginning? And all information on Katja's work can be found on our newly updated database, but the region of Finland where you work. Are you working in which part of Finland? I maybe missed it, but can you maybe repeat it if I missed it, or was it mentioned?
Is it question for me now?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Yeah.
Yes, I live in the Ostrobothnia region near the city Vaasa, and in our club there are women from two cities, Kaskinen and Kristiinankaupunki, if you know that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I somehow had this idea that it was Ostrobothnia, but then maybe I just missed it. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, I think we can now move on. We have changed the schedule a little bit. I don't see any questions in the chat or no raised hands, but you can submit questions to the chat during the whole webinar, and then we'll just collect them in the end. And now I'm asking if we have Timo Jokela back online. We switch. Yeah, thank you. So I'll give the word back, for you.
I'm here using this Hiltunen Mirja Faces, and I now try to test that. Do I get my PowerPoint visible?
Actually, we have the presentation here, and we also hear you. So anytime when you're ready, so I'll mute my mic. Yeah, thank you, please. And
yeah, just a small problem here.
Ei mitään, sä voit tästä nyt jatkaa.
Yeah.
Kysy sitten, saat vaihdettua.
Okay. I'm sorry about that confusing things with my laptop and things. I was working with the huge amount of photos and book editing and like that, and just stuck my computer. Okay, yes. Thanks for inviting to join this seminar. And I was listening here, interesting talks. Thank you. So I'm working here in University of Lapland as an Emeritus Professor in Faculty of Art and Design. And my field has been in university art education and more broadly the application of visual art across different areas of society. So actually my own backgrounds are in environmental art. I use a lot of these nature materials, work with northern ecological issues a lot, but I collaborate with local communities in my own art, and so I call myself and my art as community-based environmental art. And a more theoretical way, it's some kind of idea that interaction between identities, northern identities and northern ecocultures. And what is the situation where we are working in this kind of area? I normally work a lot with not only with the communities, but also with other disciplines at universities and also in other sector of society which are working as an organization near the culture and art and human well-being. I'm from Lapland, and my roots are here, but I have been working quite an international way, in a way that working in the Scandinavia, Iceland, Greenland, Alaska, Canada, until Hokkaido, Japan, and formal time a lot in Siberia and Northwest Russia. So it's a circumpolar global connection in a way. But I would like to ask you that, do you see my light changing?
Yes, we do. Everything
okay.
is fine. Yeah, it's running
Yeah.
really smooth and cool. Yeah, thank you.
So I established about 15 years ago a network under the University of Arctic umbrella, which is a network itself. Network called Arctic Sustainable Art and Design Network. And that has been a main frame to work with. But that's not only the way to work with the universities or research institutions. We are aiming to collaborate with artistic association and organization in each of our partner countries, including these Arctic countries, but also very important for us in Scotland and Shetland Islands and places like such. I'm not myself a social worker or healthcare worker or art therapy, but I see this importance in my work when we are aiming to have more sustainability present or future. Arctic is discussed today in very many perspectives. And we see that it's something exotic, maybe beautiful, attractive area. But if we look at that from the other perspective, we see a lot of problems. This sentence is borrowed from Arctic researchers Tanja Joona for Arctic Research Center. These problems are caused by huge interconnected changes, so-called megatrends, like climate change, of course, but also exploiting the nature resources, globalization in general. Actually, in Arctic also urbanization, because there is a huge migration to the bigger cities when aging the population in the rural and semi-rural areas happen. And young people to the bigger southern cities to get them education, and they not always come back. So the culture is somehow ruining. So these are the reasons, this kind of manifestations of worries that we are facing in Arctic. And when we are doing this kind of collaboration, we are asking that what kind of artistic activities we should have to respond these big challenges, which happen quite a similar way in all over the Arctic, but national varieties occurs very much. So it has been some kind of comprehensive studies what is really happening in this area. One big thing in our discussion has been this kind of colonialization, because a lot of other people and even the nations has a lot of this kind of memories which still affect some traumas in people's mind. It's not about the colonialization in economy so much, but it's also colonialization of people's minds. It's kind of mental. And that's the area where we are working when we are meeting, thinking about that what will happen in healthcare or school or environmental issues or the places where youngsters spend their time. So for us, this decolonialization in art has been an idea that we are creating bases for communities to shape their own narratives and resist for the forces of colonialization and globalization, and other which other worries for the cultural diversity. And that's why we have been working under the title of New Charter of Arctic Art Education, or Arctic Art and Education. And one of our projects under that initiative has been so-called Sustainability Portrait, which is very much highlighting that idea about the interaction between identities and ecocultures in the Arctic. And that is what I'm going to a little bit talking about in very practical level, that what we have done when we have been working with this. So we have been working with an artist association, youngster and elderly people in Finland, Norway, Sami area, in Scandinavia, Sweden, Greenland, Canada, Alaska, with a mission to use art and create environmental, social, and cultural sustainability self-portrait, as we call it. So we have been talking about cultural me, cultural us, social me, social us, livinghood me, livinghood us, what we really are, who we are in this world, and how can we contribute the future and the present. And when we choose the sustainability portrait as a concept, we were thinking about that sustainability. A portrait is very deeply in Western art. And it's also a way that how people have described places and cultures and identities. And if you think about this kind of images that how people in the North has pictured it, everything starts for this kind of idealistic ethnographical images where people who were coming and shortly visiting in Arctic described that how the people are there. But of course, when artists in the North and the Arctic area get education and schooling in Western art, they started to use this kind of Western type of self-images to describe what is happening, what they feel, the emotion, the activities, and even their social and even political attitude through this self portraits. And that was some kind of starting point for us. We started to work. But we started to work a lot with photographs, and we all know this kind of therapeutic photography. It has been a very recognized practice in the field of art and healthcare, and especially empowering photography, which is connected for this kind of social issues also. They are well-known approach where elevate or inspire or enhance the self-esteem or self-respect of the subject or the audience. But here you can see what happens in Greenland in a very small place called Maniitsoq, collaboration with the photographers and Siunisak Art Association, Psychosocial and Art Association. students are taking photos, youngsters are taking photos, but they are not taking photos. We are not taking photos from them. They are not taking photos only about each other, but they are working as a community. So it's not only about the photographing, but it's also the educating how to make this kind of community-based processes through these images. So students who or the youngster who take part on that, they run the whole project, the whole week, where all the community was photographed as they want to have their photos. And that was some kind of starting point for exhibitions, first and pop-up exhibitions in communities, and then the wider exhibitions in different situations in Greenland, Scandinavia, and some of these images are now, I suppose, in Japan. So that was a very radical way to use this kind of empowering photography, but in community. In other hand, in other places, for example, here in Sweden, in Umeå, university students take part in that project, and they went to look at the clothings and what kind of self-images they were showing to each other through this collection of contemporary clothing of youngsters. But for us, we were very keen on the situation that how this nature around this and what kind of possibilities the digitalization of this communication, but photography also offers for the self-images. Of course, there is a lot of these selfies. And for northern area, they are even a problem when people want to get selfies in this kind of famous places to get this kind of landscape photos in Instagram to send, and I was there. But that was not only the point that we were aiming, but we were working together that how this kind of performatives or hiking art, walking art could be included in that kind of self-portrait and still in an active and community way, not only to take this kind of self-images as a me, as a subject, as me, or individual identities. Here are just some examples of these collections. But then nowadays, very close to photography is video. Video and audio are in the same pocket, in same cell phone we have in hand in everywhere. And how to use this kind of filming video technology, which is actually very much plural when we're talking about the selfies and how the youngsters are using this digitalization, the possibilities of digital media, audiovisual media, and social media. This image is from the Haida Nation young person who is making a short film, a video in Alaska. And this is connected to some kind of idea that this video maker connect their personal history as a youngster to the community and this kind of intergenerational ties to the place and the relationship, actually this kind of eco-cultural nature relationship to Alaska land and the waters. This person is dancing a traditional dance under the melting glacier. And these films were actually, they were excellent stories where this kind of indigenous storytelling, indigenous knowledge system merged with this kind of psychosocial and psychosocial and identity issues. In Finland, we use a little bit different technique. Students or the participants around Northern Finland and Eastern Finland take photos and tell stories, written stories and audio stories about their favorite place, my place, mun paikki, minun paikkani idea. And the aim was to test this kind of new technology in a way that these very short, sensitive, small stories we brought to visible in the decision makers and those who are discussing in the administrational level, on the media level, about the future of the youngsters. Yle, the main broadcasting company in Finland, arranged in Levi, in northern Finland, on Aurora Future Festive event where people around the Arctic were discussing about the consequences of climate change. And then we have there in front of the place these big videos, huge videos, several meters wide videos, when youngsters were telling the stories to the audience when they came in to the meeting. And it was a very effective way to show what is the role of the media when you are telling stories. And this is another way where youngsters now in Rovaniemi, they are high school students, and they were guided by artists to have some kind of performance, which also connected for the climate change issues and the emotion and thoughts and worries about the climate change. And the students took different roles, and they take part in this Arctic Spirit Conference openings, where people from around the EU area were gathering together to Rovaniemi to talk about these things. But it's also connected with the video production like that, so that as a video, this performance has been touring in several places after. But when we were talking about that kind of idea about the self-pictures, self-portraits, we were also asking that how we see this connection to the indigenous cultures where tradition of self-portraits has not been as such. And what happens actually in the field of contemporary art today? We have invented quite a lot of this kind of activities in the field of art, and we are using the concept of new genre of Arctic art today when we describe the way that how these indigenous artists and other northern artists take part in that kind of active discussions through their art and merging the tradition of their own art and especially of the handicraft, which come to the temporary art issues. Like here for a couple of examples, Outi Pieski and Norwegian famous artist, architect Johan Jango, they all use this kind of material culture in the sense of new materialism as expression of their identities, community identities, and identities of their own nation, Sami identities. And that is why we also figure out that what kind of project we can do, this kind of way that we are using this kind of material knowledge and these things, materiality, which is well known, respected in the Arctic area as a point when we are working with identities and cultural diversities, and especially cultural identities. This is an example I saw very fast. As a title is Our Free Owners. I'm just ending this project, and this publication in the cover is in this image is brand new. I get it ready yesterday. But this is based on this kind of activities which happens more than 40 years ago, when people were battling against hydropower stations in Alta in Norway, but also in Ounas River in Finland. Alta lose, Sami culture won. They found themselves. Ounas was protected by the law, but now the law is only against the power stations, not mining. And people are afraid that the river will be destroyed soon because of these international mining companies which are coming there. They wanted to respect those who protected the river, but also to highlight how important the ecocultural river system, how important the ecological river system is for the whole culture. Could be talking about the ecocultural combination. So Village Association started to work with the help of artists. And that was a very deep and very long way to work, doing this kind of way to invent what has made some kind of research about the cultural history of the river and rivers' cultural relationship and rivers and village cultural relationship. Lot of interviews, lot of meetings with people, telling stories. We were talking not on artwork, not on public artwork. We were talking about the memorial artwork, muisteluteos. The key point was how we remember our past, how we remember our past to be present in this village now. So this was connection to the community artwork, movie production, video production, but also the public art. And the local men, local people take part in very many ways in this work. So it was designed in a way that it's not in this kind of skillful art as such, but it's an art that we need very many skills, tractors, drillers, basement builders, very different knowledge people still have in these villages to give honor and respect for their skills. But using also local materials, using also local boat maker techniques when construction to artwork, using this kind of old type of building techniques, using people knowledge to how to transport things, how to protect the wooden material, how to join things together, how to work together, how make this kind of kylätalkoot, as we say it in Finnish language. So we worked together step by step, and finally we had this kind of artwork there, a memory box or a memory boat, as we call it. And there were some kind of doors, and if you open that, there are different stories, written stories, images, different kind of tools which carry on the memories of the living with the river, but also carrying on the identities of the families and people. We put them together as a memory box. And finally, we had a huge celebration for the opening. And when the doorway opening, people see the stories and starting to tell new stories, building up the identities, living with the river. And there are a lot this kind of political activistic signs in that kind of artwork. People were asking artists to highlight or wanted to take part in this kind of working. So it's a combination with the house, boat, and fish and the river, and skills needed to live with the river. And then to offer this everything to the new generation, the project Sustainability Portrait arranges a workshop for the youngster when they brought to the nearest shelter, a laavu, a community laavu, kylätoimikunnan laavu, as we call it, the exhibition of the photographs of their own living with the river today. And tomorrow, these people will get in the villages, the families will all get a publication about that project. But we were all the time calling that as a self-portrait of the village, self-portrait of us, to foster the social cohesion in the village. There is not nowadays a lot of new people from the 10 different nations, people who have not roots to the village anymore. And the river is not so much a part of their identities. But this was actually in our project a case we wanted to demonstrate this kind of idea, that how this kind of new contemporary way of working with art, the Arctic art, mixing handicraft and contemporary art, could be a way for identity work, well-being, and sustainability. And with the public artwork, which is made to respect the river and the changing weather, changing cycle of the year, which is still important for the people. And if you want to have more information about the project, there is also open access articles or the books. One is about that Arctic Sustainable Art Project only. The other, Mapping the New Charter of Arctic Art Education, it's a little bit more wide about that initiative of about contemporary art merging with Arctic Northern ecocultural points. And then the final Meidän vapaa-owners, which is also in English, our free owners, just only about this kind of that memorial work. But with this, I wanted just to highlight the way that how we are working at the university, researching the possibilities, but also somehow trying to transform the whole idea of artistic education towards the system, the idea that art is not a silo, it's connected for all other sectors of society. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
for you.
we're applauding here for this presentation. This connects so well to what was already said in the previous two about the individuals being the agents in these processes, and then the self-portrait meaning for identity construction and reconstruction, and many concepts that get us back to the community's significance in art and art in community building. I don't know where to grab, but we have questions here already in the chat, so we'll start with these. And we have time until 1:30 to discuss, so I'm very happy. Thank you, all speakers. And now let's do the questions. The first one is, what kind of tools do you use to measure or document the effect of the Sustainable Portrait project on the well-being of the local communities? This goes to Timo.
Yeah, that's a big question. We are not doing research in such that measure or follow. We have indicators that we know that there has been before or prove to be some kind of indicators about the situation where this kind of fostering identity or something could happen. And we just follow, are there happening such things during these activities? But there has been not connection for that kind of research which is following how these things affect for the people, for example, after 5 years. This is, as we call it, the method. We call it art-based research. And we highlight this is an art-based action research. The research is